I thought I'd talk a little bit today about the human conduit, or the tabernacle, or the ark. In the Old Testament, they talk about the tabernacle as being a vessel, a moving vessel, a portable vessel that holds the essence of God. And of course, when I read that, I realise that's what we are. We are a tabernacle. We are a portable vessel. We hold essence. The word man is translated as, in old, I think it's in Greek or Latin, it's translated as caretaker. We are the caretaker of essence. We are the inlet and we are the outlet of this essence, and it comes through the tabernacle, or through a conduit, or if you just think of it like a hose. If you imagine that you are a garden hose, and this garden hose is a delivery system for water, so we're like a garden hose that's a delivery system for essence. So we are a conduit for great power. This power comes into us, it comes through our cognition, and we create the screen of our reality. What's on the screen is determined by what's on the film. It's not determined by the light. The light that comes through us, the energy that comes through us, when God comes through us, he has no choice but to take the shape of the messenger. So if we have a negative cognition, it will come through as a negative projection. If we have a positive and powerful cognition, it will come through powerful cognition. That's why some days we can create great things because we bring the filter forward that's beautiful, and it can create great things in the world. And other days we can bring the filter forward of negativity because of false personalities in front, and we can create very bad things and very dangerous things. And if people have got a permanently dark cognition, they can create like a Hitler or a Stalin, or they can go into a school and shoot 30 people. That's still the same essential energy, but coming through a different cognition. The concept of good and evil is really a human thing, from my understanding, because I've done very beautiful things in my life, but I've also done very evil things. But I'm not an evil person. I'm intrinsically a good person, and that evil stuff came through when I was filtering this beautiful infinite energy through a very dark, fearful lens. So when I was a doorman and I was insecure and I was violent, it was because I was projecting great energy through a negative lens. And I was creating a lot of things. I was creating, I was literally creating with this, I had this kind of very dark magnetic center that drew shit to me. I drew violence to me from every angle. So that was still the same energy. It was still the essential energy. It was still God's energy. It would just come through very dark cognition. So my life has been about clearing and cleansing the doors of perception. So if we think about ourselves as a conduit, and that we are a conduit for great power, and that we have the potential for greatness, and but that greatness is going to come through our cognition or through our beliefs, then it makes perfect sense that if we have leaks in the conduit, if we have negative cognition, we need to clear that. So people have this idea that they can be a twisted hose, or they can have a hose with a bit of a hole in it here and there, or a tear, and call for greater energy. But if you bring greater energy through a conduit that's got a hole in it or a tear, that hole and that tear will just get bigger, and it'll split and it'll get worse and worse. So if we bring more power through a conduit that does not have integrity, or a conduit that's not righteous, that's probably a good word, because the word righteous means the right path. It means it's aligned and it has integrity, it's got no breaks in it. If we bring great power through a damaged conduit, we're going to damage people in the world. We're going to damage our children. Obviously we're going to damage ourselves. We're going to damage our family, our friends. We're going to damage strangers. That's why you see the most hideous acts of violence in the world. And when I talk about violence, I'm not just talking about physical violence. I'm talking about people being violent with their thinking, people being violent with their talking. Remember what we said before about words of power in one of the previous podcasts. People being violent with their intentions. You know, it doesn't always have to be a physical act. You can destroy people just with your thinking, just with a look. I've watched fathers, you know, literally cripple their kids just with a look, just with a bad intention. You know, I've seen kids wither in the corner when their dads just looked at them and give them a very bad intention, and the kids falling into sheds of tears, and the dad's gone, what's wrong with that? I never did nothing, but I watched him do it. He's in denial that he did it himself, but people are doing that all the time. I didn't do anything. Well, you didn't, but part of you did. And that part needs to be owned. We need to own all the disavowed parts of ourselves. We need to own all those dark places. We need to convert all those dark places. So if we think of ourselves as a conduit and we want to access greater power, but power that doesn't damage us and power that doesn't damage anybody else, we need to make sure that we are steel lined, that there are no kinks in the hose, that there are no breaks in the hose, that there are no holes in the hose, because if there is, then as we bring more power through, it's just going to get worse. I'm working with people now that think they can do superhuman things, but they can't even live as human beings, and I understand that because I've been there myself. So they want to bring more power through, but they're leaking like fuck. They're leaking everywhere. They're leaking. So why would they get more power? And if they do get more power, it's going to damage them and it's going to damage other people. So if we want to call for more power, then we need to seal the leaks. We need to start recognising where the leaks are. And like I said, most of the leaks you can see just by observing yourself over the period of a day. Observe yourself and see where the leaks are. See where you gossip. See where we identify with negative things. See where we let our negative imagination spiral and put ourselves into stories of things that have not happened yet. See where our addictions are, because they're leaks. See where our vices are. Just have a look on the list of vices. Go onto the internet, look up vices. Look up vices and then do a list, and then be very honest and look at yourself and think, where am I leaking on that list? Where am I leaking? Where am I greedy? Where am I envious? Where am I vengeful? Where am I lustful? These are just leaks. It's not even a moral or an ethical thing really, it's just about leaks. Where am I leaking? Because if I want to bring more power through, I want to make sure my hose is steel lined. In fact, I don't want it to be steel lined, I want it to be gold lined. If you look at a garden hose, you know, it's just a normal rubber hose that we bring water through, and if we can get a good bore of water, you know, through this hose, we can water our garden and all the rest of it. But if we want more power, if we want to get a bigger bore of power, then we need a bigger hose. If you look at a fireman, if you go to, I used to be an auxiliary fireman, if you look at a fireman's hose, it's about that wide and it's steel lined, and when they put the full bore of water through it, it lifts them off the ground. It's so powerful. But it has to have integrity. The hose has to have integrity. Otherwise there'd be no power at the other end. It just leaks out. The danger with this is when it leaks out, it can really damage people. And it does damage people. In the Tabernacle, in the story of the Tabernacle, which was the portable container for essence, or the portable container for God's essence, the Tabernacle was lined with gold. So the inside was lined with gold, and as the layers come out, the layers got less and less rich, but the inside was pure gold. What we see with most people in life is that their exterior is ostentatious. Their exterior is gold and bling and all of the kind of blingy things that we see around us, but their interior is failing. It's wood, you know, it's perishable. So we need to reverse that. So we need to get it so that the gold is on the inside, which basically just means that we need to be working from a very strong ethical point of view of serving other people, knowing of course that when we serve other people, it serves us, and if we serve other people beautifully, it serves us beautifully. So we've got to make sure that we're gold lined. We get gold lined by sealing all the leaks. Seal all the leaks. Every single leak. Look at the pornography, the excesses, the wrong food, the wrong drink, you know, the wrong conversations. How often do you engage negative thoughts? If you engage negative thoughts, it's a leak. If you express negative thoughts, it's a very, well, if you engage them, you're automatically wasting energy. And if you express your negative beliefs, that creates a massive leak for energy. So we get lots of energy through, and it's wasted in, this this negative expression of energy. So we sit there, we're slagging him off, we're slagging her off. It's their fault, it's his fault. We get very angry about the world. We're angry in our own body. Boom, 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 boom. Just massive amounts of essence just being pissed along the floor. We're leaking, so we've got to get that. One of the biggest leaks, of course, and this is what I recognised in myself when I was younger, was I didn't know when to fucking shut up. I talked and talked and talked too much. I talked no matter whether people wanted me to talk or whether they didn't want me to talk, and that was just my own insecurity. When I realised that I was leaking a lot of energy when I talked, I started to only talk when it felt important. I'm talking now because it feels important. I got up today and I said to Sharon, today I'm going to do some podcasts because I feel it in me, it's there, it feels important, and I'm going to put this out into the world. And the rest of the time I try not to talk unless it's important, and I try and monitor my talking. So I just try to say just enough at just the right time and for just the right reason. Talking is a huge expression of energy. So if we start to look at those obvious things, how we identify with negative things, how we engage negative things, how we express negative things, our addictions, lots of our power is leaking into our addictions. If we want to be a very powerful conduit, then we need to seal those leaks up. So if you're looking at, say if you see somebody that's very overweight, you can see an obvious leak. There's a leak there. It doesn't mean they're not good people, it doesn't mean they're not beautiful people, it just means there's leaks. I know because I was 4 stone overweight myself, and it was a huge leak. It wasn't really what I was eating that was the problem, it was what I was feeding, and I was feeding a separate personality, I was feeding a separate I, a separate self. So look at the leaks. In the Kabbalah it says that all our power is locked into our addictions. In other words, all our power is leaked into these addictions, and these addictions can be thought of as separate personalities with their own will and their own agenda, and they like to come up and feed and come back down and leave us to cope with things. So think about where you're leaking. Just observe yourself over a day and see where you're leaking. If you want to be powerful in the world and you want to make a difference in the world, seal the leaks. The moment you seal the leaks, you will become a magnetic centre for more power. More power will come to you the moment you start sealing your leaks. The moment you think about sealing your leaks, the moment it becomes an idea in your head, you will start attracting more power. And if we want to create more, if we want to create a straighter, if you imagine this conduit needs to expand so we can take a bigger ball of energy, it needs to have massive integrity, it needs a stronger wall or a stronger eye wall. The way we create that stronger eye wall is by going towards all the areas where we're leaking. So if I'm fearful of something, that's a leak. I'll go and sit in that fear. I'll observe that fear without judgment. I'll just observe it and sit in it. I'll let it rise up in my body. And when I observe it, my observer expands, my shell expands, my conduit wall expands, and I'm able to access more essence. So when we step into the things we're afraid of, and we observe it, but we don't engage it, we just observe it non-judgmentally, it will dissipate. The nature of the fear will be liberated, and the essence that's left in the fear will rise up and form a shield around us, so we've got a bigger conduit. So the more we're able, if we want the bricks and mortar of a bigger shield, then we just need to go towards the area where we're afraid. I spoke with a lad the other day. He says, I don't really feel like I'm afraid of anything. I said, yeah, but you're 6 stone overweight, so you're afraid to challenge the part of you that's overeating, and you're smoking cigarettes, and you don't want to smoke cigarettes, so you've got no free will. You can't stop yourself from doing the things you want to do. You're afraid to challenge the part of you that wants a cigarette. and you haven't got a very good relationship with your wife, it's very volatile. And that's because you're afraid to speak to her about what you really want to speak about. And you won't speak to her about it because you don't want to speak to yourself about it. You don't even want to admit it. I said, so you're afraid of a lot of things. They're just subtle. You're afraid even just to lose weight. Because when you lose weight, you will come face to face with the shadow that you're feeding. And then you might have to go to war with that shadow, and that frightens you. You're afraid to lose weight because when you lose weight, that will create change in your life. And you realise that your wife is a feeder, and that your mother's a feeder, and that they are very invested in you being heavy. They say they don't want you to be heavy, but they're very invested in you being heavy. And you get a lot of pleasure from feeding this, and you're afraid to let go of that pleasure. You're afraid to be uncomfortable. You're afraid to engage discomfort. So when you say that you're not afraid, it's not you speaking. It's the shadow that you're feeding saying, there's no fear here. You don't need to look here. There's nothing here. Do not look behind this curtain. When we start to develop consciousness and when we start to challenge shadows, these shadows will put up a fight. Some of them will convert and some of them will go to war. And that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of the internal jihad, the internal fight. So if we want to be a powerful conduit, look for the leaks, write the leaks down. It won't be hard, they're right in front of you. Just observe yourself over a day and watch how many times you fall in and out of character. Leaks, 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 leaks. It's a full-time job. As I'm delivering these words to you, I'm aware myself that I'm working on lots of things myself. I took some friends to BAFTA this week, just to visit BAFTA for a cup of tea. Some people have my writers group, and we got there and had tea, and I showed them around. And I remember when I was going there thinking, who the fuck are you to take these people to BAFTA? You're nobody. You haven't done enough. You haven't done enough to do this. You haven't done enough to... Who do you think you are? And I observed that voice. I recognised it as a separate self. It wasn't strong, but I observed it. And when I got there, I said to my friends, it's really interesting because I've brought you here today, and this voice rose up in me and said, who do you think you are? Showing off. Who are you? Who do you think you are? And my friend Ned said to me, you should do that as a podcast, because it's really interesting, because they don't think I think like that. They don't think I've got parts of me that are still shadowy, that are still afraid, but of course I do. That's why I'm going out into the world and doing stuff. I'm immersing myself every single day into areas where I'm uncomfortable. The places where I'm uncomfortable is where I grow most. It's the only place I grow. I can only grow when I'm in those places. It's no good reading a book, that's not enough. It's no good hearing a podcast, it's not enough. You've got to be in the experience. So by talking to them and saying, oh, it's really interesting, this came up and I observed it as a separate self. I'm here to show you around because I can. And in bringing that to light, I was able to dissolve it. And when it dissolved, it formed a bigger shield around me. Each time we confront a fear, and each time we don't engage the fear but just observe it non-judgmentally, the energy dissipates and forms as a shield around us. So look for the leaks. Where are the leaks? Don't pretend. Please don't pretend, like I did when I was younger, that you have free will. If you can't stop yourself from eating too much, if you can't stop yourself from smoking or taking drugs, if you can't stop yourself from losing your temper, if you can't stop your violent outbursts, if you can't stop your criminal activities, if you can't control the voice that's speaking in all sorts of inappropriate ways, don't pretend that you've got free will. You have no free will. You're completely controlled by all of these separate eyes. The time you've got free will is when you recognise all of those inappropriate things as separate and start to not engage them, but start to observe them, start to sit in them, start to go to those terrifying places. Then you start to bring in self-control. That's how you develop will. When you develop will, your conduit expands and gets stronger, and then you become an attraction for massive amounts of energy. This energy that you're looking for is looking for you, but it won't come, in the way you want it to while you've got massive leaks. You need to get rid of the leaks.